Moving into a new home was the perfect excuse to upgrade everything, including our sheets, and Brooklinen did not disappoint. After long days of unpacking, slipping into these sheets felt like the ultimate reward. The buttery softness, the perfect weight, and the way they just get better with every wash make our space feel even more like home. It's not just an upgrade, it's a whole new level of comfort. We've had our Brooklinen sheets for a little while now, and what I love most is how they get softer and even better with every wash. They're made to be lived in, not just looked at, whether that's cozy weekend mornings with coffee in bed or crashing into them after a long day. The quality is unbeatable, and knowing they'll last for years makes them 100% worth it. Our house feels more like our home with them, and honestly, I can't imagine going back to anything else. As we transition into spring, I love refreshing our space with lighter layers and soft textures to match the season. Swapping out heavier blankets for Brooklinen's airy quilts and adding fresh, crisp pillowcases makes the whole bedroom feel brighter and more inviting. There's truly nothing better than cracking the windows, letting in that first warm breeze, and curling up in the perfect mix of cozy and breathable bedding. Even our dog Sawyer has claimed her spot, refusing to sleep anywhere else. Shop award winners and fan faves in store or online at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Get 15% off your first order today. Welcome to Brutally Anna, a podcast about finding love, losing love, and all the things we think about but don't talk about enough. I'm your host, Anna Kai, aka Maybe Both across social media, here to remind you that life can be beautiful even when it's freaking brutal. 13 years ago, Kristina Zias started her fashion and lifestyle blog, Miss Zias, ignoring those who called her cringe for doing so. And since then, she's been teaching us that being cringe can lead you to being featured on the Drew Barrymore show, People magazine, and so much more. Here to talk all things body positivity and confidence is the queen herself, Kristina Zias. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited. So I have all these questions, and I am going to get to some of them. But I really just want to talk to you today because I know you. And even if the listeners don't know you, they can go find you at Kristina Zias. What are you worried about right now? Like what? Because I just realized, I'm like, everybody's always worried about something. What are you thinking about right now?
I feel like I'm having a little bit of an identity crisis right now, so that keeps me up at night. I've had 2 kids within the past 3 years. I've also moved across country, so I just feel like there's so many moving pieces. And I started my website in 2011, right?
You are an OG blogger.
OG blogger. And the landscape has changed so much. I have changed so much. So I kind of just feel like I'm worried about what's next, and not worried in the sense of like, oh, am I going to be successful? I'm just like, what's going to make me happy? Like, what's the type of content I want to create? Like, who am I serving? Like, I think I'm having a little bit of an identity crisis in that.
Because so much has changed for you.
Yeah, so much has changed for me, and I don't necessarily feel I love talking about body confidence because that to me is so important. But that is kind of like what made me like blow up, I guess, or
right.
those viral
That's
moments
what gave
that
you
I had.
the career.
That's what gave me the career, right? That I was.
But we change and we need to evolve.
Exactly. I was creating content for maybe 8 years without making a single penny.
Wow.
Without making a single penny. I just loved doing it. So I just kept doing it. And then finally.
Did you start off with body positivity?
No.
Or did you start off with fashion? Or what did
fashion.
you? Fashion. Okay.
I was really struggling being a fashion blogger in my size.
Yes.
And the landscape has changed obviously a lot. But back then people would go to like showrooms and pull clothing. And I couldn't do that and fit into anything. So that was tough. And then once I started talking about being a little bit more vulnerable and talking about my body and my body confidence is what really drew an audience and then helped me gain some virality that started making me money. But now I don't necessarily, excuse me, I don't necessarily feel like every post needs to be a body positive post.
Right, because things
now I feel confident.
Yeah. You're like.
And I don't like necessarily need to talk about my rolls or my cellulite.
We've evolved.
I've
talked
evolved,
about.
you know what I mean?
They're still there.
They're still there. It's fine.
Yeah.
So but for me, I'm like, wait, but that's what people have come to me for. So I kind of feel like this pull and I just feel a little lost.
Do you know what you want to talk about? I guess it's like when you are at the end of the night, like, because you have this public facing persona, but I'm sure you have a private
persona to your husband? Like, what do you want to talk about? What's interesting to you other than being confident in your own skin?
Well, I do think that being confident in your own skin, I think, has so many different verticals. Like being confident as a mother is important to me. Being confident as a wife, just being confident as a woman doesn't necessarily have to be about my body, maybe.
It doesn't have to be about your size.
Yeah.
You recently got into running.
Yeah.
And you're training for a triathlon. What kind of spurred that? Was it because you were doing a little bit of soul searching and trying to figure out what you like to do outside of being a mom and a content creator and a wife?
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything. I think that one, I felt like I was in the worst shape I've ever been in my life.
Was that postpartum?
Postpartum.
And you did it twice in like
yes.
the span of what, 3 years, 2.5?
Well, my kids are 2 years and 1 month apart. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Actually,
I feel like I've been
even less
pregnant postpartum for like 3 years, 4 years now.
Right.
So I think it was a little bit of that. I was like, I feel like I want to get back into fitness. I used to be obsessed with working out. And then I just kind of, life took over and I lost that. And then honestly, my brother was like, hey, I'm going to do this sprint triathlon. Do you want to do it with me? And I was like, yeah, how hard can it be? Like I just needed a goal. I also
Right.
have sometimes like delusional confidence. Like someone
Which
messaged
we
me the other
love.
day and they're like, hey, like, would you ever run a marathon? And I'm like, yeah, why not? Why not? I definitely have that mentality. Why not? So this opportunity presented itself and I was like, you know what? Why not? Like, let me just train for it. I also don't have an ego. So I don't feel like, I don't care if I'm not the fastest runner. I honestly don't care if I maybe do care if I'm like the last person to finish, but I don't need to be the person who has the best swimming time, the best biking time. I'm doing this as a challenge for myself and who I was a year ago, or even honestly the beginning of this year, who said, there's no way I can do this.
You said that the other day in your stories. You're like, the only person I'm running against is who I was a couple months ago.
Yeah,
and
I feel so strongly about that.
That's amazing.
Because a lot of times people are like, I can't do that. Like, I'm a slow runner, or they're embarrassed. It's like, literally, who cares?
Well, it's all about your personal best and beating
Right.
your previous personal best rather than trying to beat someone else's personal best.
100%.
Because, like, everyone's in their own lane.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it, especially the swimming part. It feels so good.
Really? You like the swimming part?
Oh, my
I can't
gosh.
swim for shit. Like,
Really?
I can barely stay afloat, but I have my scuba diving license, which is like—
Me too.
You do?
Yes.
Kind of on brand for you, very off brand for me.
Yes, it
you
is
like
a little off brand for you.
very— because you love to travel, and I am not like an adventurous person.
Wait, why'd you get Patty certified?
For a guy,
Of
obviously.
course.
My ex-boyfriend was super into scuba diving. He was into this because we were living in New York, and he was like, every other month, I want to fly down to like one of the islands because it's actually really cheap to do so on JetBlue if you like
and
time
from
it
here.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he was really into scuba diving. So I got my PADI license. I'm pretty sure I would have to go get like a refresher course now because it's been like 10 years since I've gone. But there's this portion of the license where you have to like stay afloat for 10 minutes. Do you remember that?
I don't
Part of
remember
the
that.
test?
But we had to do a lot of swimming. And yeah,
You
I
have
think
to
I do remember
swim.
that. Yeah.
You have to tread water or float for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I did not know how to tread water or float before that PADI. But you know what you were saying
Wow,
about—
I just have a lot of fat on me, so I'm buoyant. So I could literally lay back and just coast. That's really funny. That would never be a concern. I'd be like, oh, I am good. But like Sunboy, like I don't need
Everyone
to float.
can float, but I didn't know how to do it. Most people learn how to do it before they take the test because it costs money to take the test and everything. But you know what you were saying? You're like, I have delusional, like you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like this is why you should just figure it. This is why I have my PADI license. I started treading water, you know. The instructor put on the timer and he's like, okay, for 10 minutes, you guys have to just float, right? Don't die. And so I started treading water and I was like, this is really exhausting. And I was doing it for like a minute. And I was like, I can't last another 9 minutes. And I just like looked around and other people were treading. Some people are like really good at treading water, like very casually. I'm like, who are these fucking swans
You're like
in the
going
pool
like
with me? I was dying. I was like, drowning. And I was like, all right, I cannot fail this. And I was like, okay, let me just try floating back on my back. And I did it. And I was like, I can float. And I was like, this is so much easier. And I think that's like so metaphorical of life. It's like sometimes you just have to lean back and relax.
Literally.
And let life do the work for you. And then I was like, I could do this for and then they were like, 10 minutes is up. It's like, I could go longer.
Yeah.
I can go longer. So that's why I can't really, but I can't do a breaststroke. But I have my PADI license, which again, that is a flaw in the system there, but it's fine. Yeah.
I will say, like, sometimes I think, I'm like, wow, scuba diving is kind of dangerous.
It is.
Like,
it is. My mom, she was like, Anna, what if one of the because she was very nervous about me scuba diving. So I think she's very glad that I no longer do it. She's like, you're so small and there are so many big fish in the sea. What if one of them eats you? And I was like,
that was her concern?
That was her concern. I was like, okay, thank you for putting that new fear into my brain. But back to the topic of like, training for a marathon and just so you're training for a triathlon. What have you learned about yourself since you started running? And you said you're not very fast and it's hard and everything. But like, I feel like the point of a lot of physical activity, at least for me, is the mental benefits and what I can like learn and the epiphanies I can get from like, pushing through that 1 mile that I didn't want to push through. So what have you learned?
Well, I think that a lot of times I'm guilty of comparing myself to others, right?
Oh my God, aren't we all? And also, by the way, our career does not help.
Our career is the hardest. Are you kidding when it comes to that?
There's no way to like remove yourself from what everyone else is doing.
Absolutely. And also, right. Full stop. Exactly.
Full stop.
Nothing else needed. So I think that has been one of the biggest things is that I literally don't have, like, who cares about anyone else? Like, this is just a solo journey.
Right.
Also, I do think that a lot of times I've been like, oh, I can't do this. I can't, like, first running. It takes me back to like those days in high school where I would try to do everything to get out of gym class because like you had to like run like, I don't know, a quarter mile that day.
Yes.
And that was just torture. Like I was not someone who was in shape to run. I never ran and now I have to run in front of my entire gym class. And like the guy I had a crush on and I feel like ever since those days I was like, I can't do this. I cannot run. I'm not a runner. And now I'm like, okay, well, I'm not really like a runner, but I actually am. Like I am running right now.
Yeah,
so
you're a runner because you're running.
Because I'm running,
yeah.
Right? Doesn't matter how fast I am or my form and there's things I have to work on. But I think that it has just stopped me from saying like I can't do something. And then also just my days are chaotic, honestly, with my work and my kids. And I feel like that is the moment, that half hour of running in the morning, that is for me. That is just for me. That's when I can like forget about my family. I can forget about work. Like I am just investing that time in for me. And it made me realize how important that is. And that in order for me to be happy and fulfilled, like I need to continue like giving myself that solo time.
Because if you're always pouring out and you're not pouring back into your own cup, it's like, you're empty.
Exactly.
Inside, and you have
and exhausted. Like
yeah.
That at least fulfills me in a way where first of all, it energizes me physically to start my day like that. And then I'm like, okay, I did this for me. Like now I feel like I can serve everyone else a little bit better.
Yeah. And so I was also the same as you in gym class. I hated gym class. I was always trying to take dance class instead of gym class to fulfill my like physical activity requirements. But dance class was like never at the right time or something.
We never had dance class in Jersey growing up. Like what?
I was in Philly, outside of Philly. We had dance, but it was like offered only at the times that like I had to take like an English class or whatever. So we had to do, because you and I are like around the same age. Did you ever have to do the presidential fitness test? Do you remember that?
No, wait, was that with like push-ups, sit-ups, like a whole?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Did you go to public school?
Yes.
Okay, so that I'm sure you did then.
Which is this running was probably part of that.
Yes, you had to do a mile run 2 times a year. And
yes.
I was like, yes, that's the presidential
Nightmare.
fitness test. They were like, and I think the thinking was to like, I looked into this because they retired this presidential fitness test in 2013, obviously the year I graduated college. I was like, thanks, you're no longer subjecting children to like this like horrible physical. I'm like, why are you telling a 10-year-old to do sit-ups? The thinking was, who created this presidential fitness test was like back when they were trying to prepare kids to go to war, like during World War I think. And they were like, oh, we want them to be physically fit so that when they get to 18 and they get drafted, they can go to war. I was like, I am not going to war.
Right.
Okay, so we don't need to do, like, I still can't do a pull-up. But
my gosh, the pull-ups and the ropes. No, I'm sorry. Like pull-ups are the most challenging thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. I've never been successful at it ever.
I think that's why women are because I think women in general, not, obviously there's women that have killer upper body strength, but I think women in general, like, just, like, are not as into, like, the upper body strength. I think that's why, like, we're so into, like, arms. Like, I feel like a lot of women are into, like, sexy arms on men.
Maybe that's why. Yes. We also, that's so funny that you said that is why they do that, because I'm on the Chinese kindergarten algorithm. Have you seen those videos?
No. What is
You're going to see them now.
Okay.
what's going on in China in these kindergarten classes is insane. Like, these kids are professional athletes. The way they are dribbling the basketballs, you have to watch these videos.
Wait, I'm dying. This is absurd. Why are you on this algorithm?
I don't know how it came up. I think
kindergarten.
I don't know how.
Is it in English?
It's just videos.
It's just videos. Is there any like audio or is anybody speak? It's just literally.
Well, mostly it's probably like we're fucked here in America. Look at kindergartners in China. That is what it's about.
Okay.
And it is wild. Like, these kids are professional athletes. You have to see it.
Okay.
Everyone.
Talk about taking somebody's highlight reel and like, you know, don't like, but also like because I'm Chinese, like coming from a background where like there is, you know, there's that's hilarious, first of all, but also like that kid probably has no life. Like that kid's 100%. Parents are probably like, or what they're doing is there's a billion people in China. They're taking like the, you know, 500 proteges there are and putting it on video. Because, you know, there's always these kids that are like oddly good at everything. So it's like, okay, you're a protege. Or like the kids who like learn how to do calculus before like they're 8 years old.
But these are classes of like 30 kids all dribbling at the same time in uniform. I think we came,
it's fine.
You know what? I'm in a group chat with like 10 of my best friends from college, and 3 of them are educators, and 1 went to teach abroad in China for a little bit. And I think that's probably how this conversation came up. Someone was like, have you seen kindergartners in China? So anyways.
But it is, you know what it is? There's also a cultural thing too, whereas like Asian culture is very focused on discipline. And I think that is like instilled at a very young age. So it's a lot, whereas like I think American culture is more focused on creativity and like letting just kids be who they are to an extent. But yeah, that is a perfect example of like, you know what? Don't compare yourself to the Chinese kindergartners. You're doing fine.
Thank you.
Like, I hated the presidential fitness test and I never could run the mile. And I had an existential crisis when I was like 26 and I was like, I'm going to sign up for the New York City Marathon.
Oh my gosh, have you run it?
I have. And I'm not athletic. So here's the thing.
Okay, this is motivating.
Yes. Okay. Could never do the mile run. And every time, and I did do it because we had to, I think my average pace was like somewhere between a 13 to 15 minute mile, which is basically walking.
Fast walking.
It's fast walking.
My mom can walk through like a TJ Maxx way faster than that. My mom's like an 8-minute TJ Maxx sprinter. Like,
that's what you have to get. You just got to get some like weird TJ Maxx caramel popcorn at the end and then you'll go for it, you know?
Literally.
But I think, so I was like, I'm just going to sign, because it was the age like all my girlfriends were signing up for like marathons and everything. I was like, I'm just going to try. I signed up for the New York City Marathon. I was like, if I get in via the lottery, I will run it. And I did.
How long did it take you to train for that? So
that's the funny part. I started training. I was like, I got in, I think in February, and the marathon's in November. I was like, I have so much time. You know, I'm going to train. So I started training and I didn't really have a plan. It was just like, I'm just going to run a shit ton and just hope for the best. So it started off, 3 miles, then 5 miles, then 8. And then I had run half marathons before.
Okay.
But half marathons are very different than a full marathon. And so I was like, I know I can run a half. And I think I started running just way too much too soon. And I also was like really bad about warming up, stretch. So I then injured my foot. I got like a tiny fracture in my foot from like overuse. I don't know. So this was, I think, May, and my podiatrist was like, stop running, basically. You just can't run. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'll just stop running and then hope for the best. And I didn't know but it was like far enough from the marathon that I was like, okay, we still have time to heal and then start training again. And then come August, September, we're like 2 months away, like I really need to be training. I was like, I feel like I don't have enough time to train the way I want to, because like my way of approaching everything in life is being over-prepared, and I no longer had time to be over-prepared. So I went on one 16-mile run from like, I don't know, the west side to the east side of New York. And I did it. And I was like, we're just going to hope for the best for the rest of the 10 miles.
Yeah, and you did it.
And I then carb loaded for the whole month of October and November. I just ate a ton of carbs, did a 16-mile run, and just hoped for the best. And I remember my boyfriend at the time took me out to dinner. to like an Italian dinner before the marathon the night before, just to be like, hey, you got this. But also like, what if you don't got this? Because literally you haven't really trained. He's like, I know you've run 16 miles, but you do realize that the marathon's 26.2. Like there's an extra 10.2 miles in there. And he was like, what if you don't finish? And I don't know where the hell this delusional self-confidence came from, because I typically am not like this, but I was like, I will finish. I just knew I was going to finish, and I did. And I not only finished, but I finished at 3:59, so under 4 hours at an average of 8:59 per mile, which was insane. And that was a skill that I had no idea was in me until I tried that. It was stupid. I don't suggest anybody else not train for a marathon and show up hoping for the best. But that's a perfect example of like, you don't know what you're capable of until you try. We all have these hidden talents that we don't know.
Totally.
And like, if you just say to yourself like, oh, I couldn't even run a mile in high school. Who am I to? You don't know. You might get to this triathlon and like own it, you know? It's like.
No, I do feel like I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
You should, because trust me, I was like the
But
scrawny
maybe I
kid
need
that
to
was
eat more carbs.
Wait, actually, I don't know if there's any science in this, but just like eat as much fucking pasta and bread as you can the month before. And I swear that helped.
No, I actually feel like I'm not eating any carbs.
And you're training for a triathlon?
Yes. I feel like I'm on a very protein-heavy diet. Which is fine, but like I should probably eat more carbs. My brain is turning right now. I'm like, I need to look up diets.
I'm not a nutritionist. I cannot speak. So if this is totally wrong, forgive me. But I just heard from somewhere that like when you do like cardio, you need
because people carbo load like the day before.
Yeah. But I was like, I couldn't train the way I wanted to, so I'm going to carb load like nobody else will. You know,
wow,
you got to be extra in some
plan. There's like this penne buck I've been dying to try and tell.
Give yourself permission, right? It's
oh my gosh, that's funny.
Every day, all day. So that's really cool. I mean, I think it's inspiring for me to look at you, because I struggle with so many of my daily activities in my life and my career. And then I think about you and I'm like, you have these problems and you do it with 2 fucking kids. How do you manage it? I know it's like you figure it out, but like, is there any structure to your day, or do you just throw 3 sheets to the wind and say, hey?
I'm not going to lie. Like I throw 3 sheets to the wind and say, hey. I do try to have some structure, right? Like for instance, I'll try and get my workout done. In the morning, I'll set my alarm for 5:30, and I try and get up and do a workout before the kids wake up, because I know otherwise, like the day is just so hard to get that done. Where before, I'm just like an early riser. I like waking up early. I feel like that's
I'm the opposite of you. Are you to bed early then too?
Not as early as I should.
So you just don't sleep?
I don't sleep as much as I should. Yeah, I definitely don't. I definitely get that from my mom. My mom has not slept in 30 years. Like, it is wild. Like, that woman has an insane amount of energy.
Jealous. I am not like that. I need like 7 to half function and really 8.
I can function on less sleep, I think, is a gift that I have.
Okay.
But I am more creative in the morning, and that is when I work the best. So before I had kids, I would get up at like 5:30, and that's when my day would start working. Like, I just love that morning hour. And now, unfortunately, I have to choose working out or working during that time. And I end up choosing working out because I'm like, I need that for my mental and physical health.
Yes.
So then the rest of the day is kind of chaotic. My partner is super involved. He's as much of a parent as I am. So I think that makes it a little bit easier. I feel like a lot of moms are just, everything falls on them. And I do feel like I'm still default parent. Everything just falls on you. There's like a mental
You're still
load
the woman.
as a mom that like men just will never experience.
For sure.
I'm like, have you even thought about camps for the kids? Like, that thought has never crossed your mind. I was like, I signed them up to 2 already, you know?
Men are not like super big forward thinkers. I feel like my husband's very in the moment, which is good because I need the reminder to be in the moment. But it's like, okay, we need to plan for the future, because then the future is going to get here and be like, oh, all the camps are full.
Right, exactly. So a lot of that takes place. But I also just feel like I am kind of someone who can thrive a little bit in the chaos.
That's amazing.
I've always been like that. So I think it helps me with kids being like, okay, it's fine. Like, it can be messy. It's just messy. And that's how it is. I'm like in this stage of life, and I've talked to so many of my friends who are like this, and maybe their lives are a little bit easier because they're more structured and they have more structured careers where they have to show up at a certain time. I think that's what makes this job a little bit more challenging, is that so much weight falls on you because you're your own boss. You have the time management all falls on you, as well as the
almost
creative
like you have
everything.
no one to blame but yourself
No one
if you
to
don't
blame.
get something done.
Right. However, I feel like so lucky and so blessed that I'm like, okay, like I can do things later on, or like it can be pushed to tomorrow. And then just every day it's like prioritizing like what's most important. Whether that's like yesterday I was like, fuck, I have so much work I have to do. I really want to work. But I was like, you know what? Like I really I volunteered at my son's school to be celebrity chef. I'm like, to me, this is more important today than like editing this video.
And by the way, you're going to remember being a celebrity chef at your son's school forever versus you're going to edit the video eventually. Right. You won't remember that.
And also for the first time in my life, I started outsourcing.
Really?
I was like, wow, I needed this.
How? Like, do you have an assistant
I have
now?
an editor.
Oh, you have an editor?
I have a video editor that I was like, and she doesn't help me with every single video, but she's someone who I will be like, hey, can you edit this video for me?
For your short form or for your podcast?
Short form. Both.
Oh, okay. Amazing.
So I started outsourcing. I was like, I literally can't do this anymore. Everything's falling through the cracks. And I was like, wait, like I don't have to do it all.
No.
There's people who can help you. Or for instance, like I put up shoppable posts and I have someone who helps me make them.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I will send voice notes and be like, hey, I love this outfit from Abercrombie. There's a sale going on. Can you put it into a Canva board for me? And then I'll link it. Where before, like that would take me an hour to do. So being able to send that voice note has really helped me.
That's amazing. And I think it's okay to ask for help. I think as women, we are always taught like we have to do it all on our own. So it's great that you figured out like that balance.
Also, I moved back to New Jersey where my family is. And that has helped me. Like honestly.
Was that a big reason why you wanted to move back?
Yeah. I mean, I freaking love my neighborhood. I feel like I literally couldn't have chosen the better place in New Jersey to move to.
You like live on a lake or a pond?
Or I live on a
gorgeous.
River. It's
River.
beautiful.
Okay, it's stunning. The ducks and
swans. Yeah, it's really magical.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I was like, I need my mom.
Yeah.
I need help. Like, so I'm okay with asking for help.
So you recently made a very, very big move, as we talked about, from LA to New Jersey. You were in LA for how long?
12 years.
Did you meet your husband, Steve, out there?
No, I actually met him down the Jersey Shore, which is ironic because that's where we live now. And then we were dating for a year and a half. And I was just like in my early 20s being like, what the hell am I doing with my life?
Wait, did you meet him like out on the Jersey Shore?
I was working as a cocktail waitress. And it's so funny because
How old were you?
I was 22.
And how old was he?
He was 27.
Okay.
And he doesn't drink. He doesn't really party. And he was at home watching the movie Yes Man. And his friend kept calling him being like, do you want to come out to dinner? You want to come out to dinner? He's like, no. And he was watching this movie. He's obsessed with Jim Carrey. He's like, you know what? Let me just go. And he went out to dinner with his best friend's dad, and his best friend's dad's friend.
Okay.
And while they were leaving, they happened to know someone who was throwing a private party upstairs. And that's where I was working.
You were working the private party.
I was working the private party, yeah. And we just like locked eyes and he approached me and we dated and had kind of like a whirlwind romance.
Did he ask you out right away? Like, did he start chatting up the cocktail way?
Yeah, he did. I honestly remember the first thing he said. I was like, oh, this is a weird pickup line. He's like, how tall are you? And I'm like,
that was the first thing
he said to me.
That's actually such a green flag, though, because it's like, I don't know, it's like a very cute, like, opening. It's almost like, I think it's like a red flag when men are too smooth with the opening lines. It's almost like.
But you know what? I remember, it was funny to me because I was like, okay. But I was thinking, how tall is he? Because he's really tall.
He's really tall.
He's really tall. And I remember being like, oh, he's like really tall. And like thinking that was sexy, you know?
Because how tall are you?
I'm 5'10". Yeah, and I was wearing heels. So I was probably like 6'1", 6'2". So he was probably like, damn, this girl is huge. He's
like, great.
Yeah. So anyways, we started talking. He asked for my phone number. He texted me literally like 2 minutes after he left. And just started making plans.
I mean, see, that's a perfect example of like why the right man will never leave you wondering.
Oh,
you know,
he gives so much. He loves giving relationship advice to my friends too. He's like, trust me, if a guy likes you, you will know. You will know. He's like, even with Ray, who's my podcast host, he would always try and tell her that because she was struggling with these guys who were not giving her the attention that she deserved.
Right, or breadcrumbing, you know. Yeah. They're like, oh, you know, it's not a no, but it's not a yes.
Totally. But Steve would be like, he would make all the plans. He would drive from Staten Island to New Jersey to pick me up, to drive me to New York City to go on a date, to drive me home.
Oh my
And
gosh.
if you know the logistics of the tri-state area, that's
insane.
Effort.
That's like a lot of time in the car for him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were in New Jersey and he was in Staten Island, to me, that's basically a long distance relationship.
I guess it kind of was, right?
Because it just takes so much time to navigate the traffic of the tri-state area.
Literally.
So that's insane. How long did you do that for?
So 1.5 years. So we met and we dated for 1.5 years. And then I had this weird epiphany. I woke up one morning and I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I'm 23 years old. I was trying to pursue TV hosting and started this blog, and I was not successful at either of them. I was working at Nordstrom in my hometown, which was my college job. And I was like, literally, what am I doing with my life? I'm living at my parents' house. My mom's doing all my laundry. Like, I didn't want this anymore.
Right.
And I couldn't move to New York City because it was so close and so expensive. It made no sense. So I was like, I'm going to LA. And I'm not even kidding you. I woke up, I said, I'm going to LA. And I told Steve, I was like, I'm moving to LA. He's like, what? He used to be an actor and did fitness modeling. So he'd go to LA all the time for work. So he's like, okay. He's like, I'll come with. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. We were out there 2 weeks later looking for apartments. And then a month later, we went out there 2 weeks later looking for apartments.
I love that he was like, I'll just come with.
Yeah.
I'll uproot my life too.
He literally was like, okay. He's like, I want to be with you. He's like, pretty much was like, can we do it together? I was like, let's go if you want to. But I was like, I'm doing it either way.
Wow. You were ready to Did you get to a point where you're like, if you're not coming with me, we're either going to do very, very long distance or break up?
It wasn't even a conversation. Because as soon as I said that, he was like, okay. He's like, I think he was down for the adventure. You know? And I'm not kidding you. 2 weeks later, we were out looking for apartments. He was like, okay, well, I train people. I can train. So he went to Equinox to find a job. I went to Nordstrom. I was like, I can work at Nordstrom in LA. This is what I was doing anyways. And you know what it's like being an actor trying to be TV host. You need like another side hustle to like actually pay your bills. So we found jobs. And then a month later, we were out there. We didn't even have an apartment. We stayed at on this guy's couch who I knew from college and found our apartment that weekend.
Wow.
And then we were like, we'll try it out for a year. And then 12 years later.
Do you ever think about, I mean, I think just that story juxtaposed against the fact that you were like, should I sign up for like a triathlon? Like, I think every time you think about like starting something new and how scary that is, you should think about like where you come from. Because
right.
the stakes were actually so much higher then. Like you have so much more now. You have financial stability now. You have a family. Like you have your family nearby. And I think it's like so easy to get wrapped up in the day-to-day of like what we have yet to accomplish that like it's really interesting to hear where you came from, because you literally came from sharing a couch with your boyfriend and working these side hustles that you didn't really want to do to now. And even though you have so much further to go, it's like really cool to hear that you just kind of figured it out and that you had a partner in crime. I mean, you got lucky, girl, that you found a man at like 21, 22 who was just down for the adventure. I couldn't even get somebody to call him like my boyfriend.
No, I will say Steve really is my partner in crime. He is like, I mean, my ride or die. Like I feel like he has this ability to, my dad asked me one time and who's like, what is it most that you like love about Steve or whatever? And I was like, he like can just calm me down. Like he knows how to calm all like the negative noise in my head. Like it just brings me down to like a level where I feel like so calm and like, I can be an anxious person. He just like eases that. And then also we both have he's a Sagittarius, I'm an Aries. I don't know. We just have this like crazy adventurous spirit together.
Do you believe in soulmates because you met your husband so young?
No, I don't believe in soulmates. Oh, I don't know. I feel like you can have multiple soulmates. Like I love my husband and I think he's a great partner for me and I love this life that we're living. But like, I feel like another version of me, someone could have brought out another version of me too, you know?
Right. And it's like, you know, you'll never know the life you didn't choose,
right.
But you love this life now and that's what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think women place too much emphasis on the soulmate.
Yeah.
And it's like this thinking that like if they leave, oh my God, I'll never see or find another person like this. And it's like that's just a very limiting belief. But like it is really cool that – did you date prior to Steve?
I did date prior to Steve, but no, I never had like serious boyfriends prior to him.
Okay. So you know –
I also like was raised in this culture where my dad – like I feel like my parents really instilled this like if a man doesn't do this for you, like don't waste your time.
Interesting.
Like, I would be in college and be like, if he's not taking me out to dinner, like, I'm not interested. Like, I just had a very high
bar.
Yes.
So you kind of filtered out the noise right away. Is that because, so you're Greek, you're 100% Greek. Are your parents from Greece or are they like first generation?
My mom was born in Greece. She came here when she was 10 years old. She's from this little village, Plati, in Limnos, which is my favorite island ever. And my dad, both of his parents were Greek, first generation here, but he was born in Brooklyn.
Okay, got it. So they're like, so they're second gen, or your mom's first gen. Your mom's an immigrant.
My
Your
mom's an immigrant. My
dad's
dad's first
gen or
Yeah.
second gen. I don't know how it works. Anyway, it's not
I'm a little
important.
confused. Yeah. Greek was my first language. I'm very like much raised in the culture.
What do you? Steve's not Greek, is he?
He's Italian.
He's Italian. Okay, so
very similar actually. His dad
cultures.
was born in Italy, moved here. His mom was born here, but both from Italian descent.
I think culture is like so interesting because I think about my culture and how I grew up in Pennsylvania, not really surrounded by people who were of my culture. And the older I've gotten, the more I realize just how Chinese I am, even though I grew up in very, very like suburban white America. Like, what values have you kind of taken from Greek culture that you sort of instill in your kids now? Or do you feel like makes you different because you were raised with a heavy influence of Greek culture?
Well, first of all, it's so funny because I was raised in such a predominantly Asian community.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, in Edison, New Jersey.
Oh my God, it was that is so Asian.
It is so Asian. It's like, I think one of the top Asian cities outside of Asia.
That
literally,
and like
Chinese
Bergen
and
County
Indian.
too is very Asian, I know.
I think for me, it's more about, it's just like the family traditions.
Yeah.
Like, and having that value. Like, I think my mom, she probably still calls her dad like 5 times a day. My papu's 100 years old.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So
bodes well for you.
What happened?
Bodes well for you. The longevity genes there.
Knock on wood. I think it's just that respect for your family. Maybe, and the influence that your family has is one thing. I think persistence, I feel like that is something that has always been taught to me. And I don't know if that's so much of a Greek culture thing or just my parents, honestly.
Or just sort of like an immigrant thing.
An immigrant thing, probably.
What did they do when you were a kid? Like, what did they do for work? And
my dad has worked in finance his entire life. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She worked in finance and then ended up leaving once we were born.
Right.
But my dad always just tells me a story about his mother who, she was like the president of the Philoptikos, which is like the Greek women's club at church.
Okay.
And he was like, gosh, he's like, she just was like a huge personality. And he was like, my mother would have done so many things with her life if she was born at a different time.
Yes.
So anyways, I always just like think about her and like that message. And he just spoke so highly of her having such a vibrant personality, but being stuck in her generation, in that era.
Do you think that inspired you to go out and do what you're doing now?
I think so. Or I think that I just always have it in me. Like I think about that sometimes. I'm like, wait, like people paved the path. Like I wouldn't have always been able to do this.
Right. I think that's a huge motivating factor for me too, is that like I wanted to do a very atypical thing in my life. I wanted to be a creative, but I was also like, I can't just quit because it's not just about me. And I think maybe that's an immigrant thing where it's like,
100%.
it is not, you do not exist in a vacuum. You are a legacy of what somebody else did, you know? And I was thinking, I was like, my parents did not come here so that and I'm an only child. So it's not even like I'd be like, well, at least I have like a successful brother.
That's a lot of pressure.
I was like, it's just me. I am the lineage. And so it's like, I was like, I just, I could not live with myself if I didn't try to pursue some sort of career. It's like because my mom gave up a lot of her because they couldn't afford a babysitter. So, she's very educated. She has her math, but she couldn't really pursue a career because somebody had to like take care of me. So she worked, but she didn't really work in the job that she like wanted to. And so they gave up so much. And so I was like, you know what? Like, what do I have to fear?
I think that really is an immigrant child thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that a lot of people in America necessarily feel that pressure from their families.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm like, I don't think my parents put this pressure on me. I feel like that is something I've put on myself. Like my parents were like, we paid for your college. Yeah. Like, if you don't, like, get this job, like, you're a failure and, like, you've let us down. Like, there's never been those.
Same.
But there has been that inherent guilt almost.
Yes.
And pressure I put on myself because I am thankful and appreciative, and I do feel like there's a responsibility to make them proud. And I also, you're an only child, but I'm a eldest daughter.
Right, which is
a whole thing.
My
dad sent me this like thread, and my dad like sends me articles 10 times a day. And he's like, have you heard about this elder daughter theory?
You're like, yes, Dad.
Yes, I have.
I am an influencer, for sure.
So I do think there's like that pressure as well.
What is the whole eldest daughter like thing? I've heard it, but like what is, because I don't know. You know, it's like
I will say I don't necessarily feel like that. I am the eldest daughter to say, but essentially the eldest daughter is said to take on the responsibility of the family.
Right.
And I have seen that. I have friends that are the eldest daughters, and they are pretty much responsible for their parents after a certain point.
Right.
I think that's like pretty much what it is.
Yeah. And but it does tie into, I think, like immigrant child guilt.
Yeah.
I talk about that all the time. And it's not
gosh, immigrant child guilt, like unless you know it, you don't understand it.
Yeah. It's this idea that like, to me, and my parents never put any pressure on me. Never. They were never like, they just wanted me to be happy. Literally, they were like, just go and do what makes you happy. But it is this idea that like, I think what happens is you see your parents sacrifice so much for you.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that if you're not an immigrant, like your parents don't sacrifice for you. But it is so much harder to make it in this country when you don't speak the language, when you're not of the culture. And then when you've seen, you know, I mean, we live in a very woke culture now. That was not the case when we were growing up. I saw my parents be subjected to a lot of racism and discrimination when I was growing up. And so I think there's like this idea that like you have to make it worth it. You have to make what they went through worth it.
Yeah, I think that since my parents had like a little bit more, I had more of a traditional life in the sense that, okay, my dad had a career, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. They kind of like expected a similar life for myself. And there was a lot of times where we're like, what is she doing? Like, okay, like maybe you like need to give up on this like influencer taking photos of yourself thing. Like, I remember my mom being like, you are so good at sales. Like I worked at Nordstrom and I was like a salesperson, but I was one of the top salespeople. You know, like I was like, no, I'm really good at this job.
I could see that.
And my mom's like, you know what? You should go into pharmaceutical sales. She was watching 2.5 Men at the time.
I'm so creeped out right now because that's what my dad told me to go do.
Yes,
because he was like, "You should go." I was in sales and real estate,
exactly.
But he was like, "You should go into pharmacy because he's a scientist. He's like, oh, you know, you could make so much money, like pushing pills."
Yes, I was like, I don't even really take Tylenol. Like, I'm not gonna.
I was like, what is pharmacy?
No, that is funny. That's why your dad came up with it. My mom came up with that. That's because she was watching 2.5 Men, and Penny on that show like was trying to be was a struggling actor, and then I think she went into pharmaceutical sales. Anyways, I was like, I am not doing that. I'm not.
Right.
So now that I have found some success and was persistent in my career, I do feel like a pressure to be like, no, like I paved this path. I'm going to be successful in it.
Right. And like you did it on your own and you're living life on your own terms, which I'm sure is like a breath of fresh air for them because again, it's like, it's not like they expected you to have a career, but it was almost more nerve-wracking, I'm sure, for them that you were trying to pursue having a career. They were like, please just like have a baby and be a stay-at-home mom, something that we can explain to our friends.
Right. And I think they were just like, you know, the family is scared of like instability.
Yeah.
And I think your parents just want like a happy, stable life.
Yeah, they don't want you to be special because
they don't want you to struggle.
Be special sometimes means you're subjected to more like trials and tribulations.
Totally.
That's so interesting. Okay, so I want to talk about, you talk a lot about body positivity. Yes. And you are confident now. You said this. You're like, you know what? I talk about this a lot. I'm having an identity crisis because I'm confident now. I don't need to talk about my cellulite. But I feel like I'm really comfortable with who I am now. And I don't struggle with like body positivity, but I've always struggled with like race and like being Asian. And so everybody has, you know, pick your battle, right? Do you still feel like there are times when you walk into a room and you forget that you're confident? Because I feel like sometimes I'll walk into a party or I'll walk into a room and like for me, how it shows up is that I spent so much time like trying to figure out how to love myself as an Asian American woman and not wishing I was white or anything. And now when I go back to like my hometown or I go into a room where it's like all white people, I'm like, I notice and like there's a second where I'm like, oh, I feel out of place again. And it's like this constant reminder. So I'm curious, like, do you ever walk into a room or a party and you're like, oh, like revert to like, hey, I'm bigger than the girls here?
Well, I guess there's two different scenarios I can think of recently. I have been put into like more uncomfortable circumstances since I moved. So I lived in LA for 12 years, right? So I was very familiar with the people there, the scene. Now I come to New York and I go to events. I'm like, I don't know anyone here. And that can be overwhelming, right?
Right.
I will say in those circumstances, I don't think about being the biggest person in the room. That doesn't faze me anymore.
Okay.
As long as I like my outfit. If I like my outfit and I feel confident with the way I look that day, like I don't care.
Yeah.
How big I am or if everyone else is thinner than me. It's more about like, I feel like I am constantly trying to put the effort in to meet new people. I'm always the person approaching at the party.
Right.
Always. I just feel like I have to put that effort in because otherwise I'm like sitting in the corner and that just makes me feel anxious and nervous.
It's really, and especially in these because I feel I have a lot of social anxiety with big groups of people and parties, like bigger than 4, because it's like, who am I supposed to talk to, you know? But it is always like, it's hard introducing yourself and being like, I'm Kristina or I'm Anna and being the first person.
Yeah.
Because I think there's still this element of it's like, you know, there's still this emphasis on being cool that I wish wasn't a thing, but it's like, oh, like you can't try too hard. And it's always like, I've tried so hard for everything in my life. And so like, I will continue to try. But I think that's what makes you so approachable. Like I remember the first time I met you, it was like, so you were so open, you know, because there's no ego there. Yeah. There's no, oh, do you know who I am? Or like, what have I done? Or anything like that,
right.
you know, but it is tough because sometimes you don't get that energy back.
Right. And that's the thing. I'm very good at putting that energy out. And then like when it doesn't necessarily come back, that's like, okay, figuring out how to navigate that in every single situation can be a little bit challenging.
Right.
When it comes to the body confidence, and I've never thought I would feel like this, but I live in the suburbs now.
Right.
And I've also, for the past 12 years, been in this body positivity world where like everyone online, for the most part, was hyping me up, right? I'm telling you, like, I'm uncomfortable in my skin. Like, this is what I've done. People are like, yes, like, I feel like that way too. So there's a lot of positive energy. Also, in, like, the content creator world, like, I was friends with so many people in LA. Now I'm in a suburban bubble. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I went shopping in my town. I'm not even kidding you. The boutiques there did not carry above a size 28 jeans. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, you don't even care. I'm like,
this is why I like don't shop in person. Right. I like only shop online now.
I'm like, you don't even carry you don't carry an XL. Like, forget about plus size. You don't even have an XL. And I like, this was happening over and over again. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, is everyone in this town just thin? And started to look around. And I'm like, oh, everyone is really thin. So then I started to get into my head a little bit for the first time in a very long time. And I was like, wow, this is so weird. Like, I've shared my life online. I do TV segments. I'm like part of the Drew crew for the Drew Barrymore show. Like I'm fine talking about my body and stuff like this, being in front of millions of people. But now I'm in like this little suburban bubble and I'm finding myself a little insecure for the first time in a long time. And I was like, why is that? And I live in a beach town. And I'm like, oh my gosh, summer's coming up. Like everyone's gonna be at the beach club in their swimsuits. I'm like, what do I wear in front of these people? I'm like, do I wear a bikini? Like normally I would.
And I saw a video where you did recently. You're like, just wear the fucking bikini.
And I'm like, normally I would wear that. But I'm like, now I was like, is it okay to wear a bikini in front of these other moms? And I think that there's something about moms and like suburban moms that start to make me feel insecure about myself. And maybe because I don't have a traditional job, I'm like, wait, are people going to judge my career? The fact that I'm putting myself out there, the fact that like I might be the biggest person in this room, but I'm wearing a bikini when they're like, you know what I mean?
Right. And then, you don't have like an 8-pack.
And I don't have an 8-pack. And they're probably like, ew. Like I'm like, they probably. And it's probably because they're insecure in themselves and judging their own bodies because they would never feel comfortable to wear a bikini at the beach club in front of the other parents and the kids if their stomach wasn't like flat, you know? But I'm like, that's a reflection on them, not on me. But this is a new world I'm navigating that for the first time in a very long time, I felt myself, I've heard a different dialogue.
Right. And I think it's important to catch yourself and admit that because I felt very similarly to you when I left the city because LA and New York are very diverse.
Right.
And it's, you know, it's easy putting yourself out there when like everyone doesn't look like you.
Right.
When everyone looks like something else. And these are very, you know, people come from all different walks of life in these two cities. And for 11 years, I lived in New York and I never felt out of place because even if I was the only Asian person in the room, I wasn't, the only person of color in the room,
Right.
or like, it's different here. And then I moved to Connecticut, and I also married a man who's from the suburbs of Boston. And I remember the first time he's from the suburbs of Boston, so he's really into Cape Cod. And so he took me to Cape Cod for the first time. And I viscerally remember the first time I went to a party, and I was like, this is the first time I have been in a room with all people who don't look like me in so long, who are all of this one culture. And and nobody was judging, but it is something you catch yourself. You're like, oh, wait, I spent all this time working on myself, figuring out how to feel comfortable in my own skin. And the first time I'm like a fish out of water, maybe I'm not as confident as I thought I was,
It's interesting you say that about diversity because I'm white, right? Like I'm Greek, but I am white, right?
Yeah.
But I grew up, I would say, in my town, like it's so predominantly Asian. Like being a white person was rare, okay,
Right.
which is fine. Like so I have so many diverse friends. Then I lived in New York, in LA. Like I went to Rutgers. Like, I was always in such a diverse community that I think that was just my normal. That now, and maybe that's part of it. Like where we moved to feels very white suburbia, and as a white person, I still think I'm like, oh wow, like that. It feels different for me,
Right.
And I'm white.
It's about the culture. It's
about,
not so much about being white as I always say. It's about, the culture and whether, and I'm trying to be PC about this, obviously, but I think it is very much, I say this to my husband all the time, it's the difference between being in New York City and being in a room full of white people who just understand, like,
100%.
who get it, like who understand diversity, and me going to, we were in Cape Cod last weekend.
I love Cape Cod, by the way.
Cape Cod is stunning. Love it. But we went into a store, and the man who's like, we're getting like a sign for our house, right? And it's like from like a very old like woodworking store like that has been around for like 30 years in Cape Cod. And this man is like 80 years old. And he turns and he's like, looks at Dave and me, and he's like, oh, I had to stop myself for a second because, Dave, my husband looks just like my tenant. I was like, oh, okay. All right, fine. And then he's like, and my tenant just married a Mexican girl too.
What?
And I was like, when you get like secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah, yes.
I was like, something in me just like, I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, just make this man feel okay about the fact that he really was ignorant, right? I mean,
right.
I was like, well, I have been mistaken for Mexican before when I'm tan in the summer. And he was like, oh, did I get that wrong? I was like, yeah, I'm Chinese. And he was like, oh, it was awkward, but I'm like sweating even like
thinking about it.
And like, that's the difference between white in New York and white.
Right.
Where he's from.
You know what's funny that you say that? And I wonder how you feel about this being an actor.
Yeah.
But for me, like as someone who was hosting, I tried acting for a second, and I was like, I'm literally the world's worst actor, like ever. I was always like, you want to be ethnically ambiguous. That was always a huge term. And I used to host a podcast about The Bachelor, and we got written up once.
Yes.
And we got written up as being like as one of the top Bachelor recap podcasts. And one of the reasons they spotlighted us was because our panel was so diverse. And they're like, Zias, the lead host, who's Latina. And I was like,
oh my God.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how are you gonna just like assume that? Like, also, like, if you do any research at all, like, I mean, I guess you have to dig a little bit. It doesn't have like Greek.
But so bold of them to just assume. Like, you should just never. Dave was like standing there, and he was like, we walked away. I mean, you got to give like, he was 80s. And he probably
and also,
never
like,
left Cape
it's not like anything.
No.
There's no malicious intent there.
It's just, you know what it is? It's ignorance. And I think that's the difficult part for me, like going into situations where I lived in New York and people weren't ignorant, and now going into situations where people are ignorant. It's like, okay, you're not trying to be racist, but like I shouldn't have to educate you. Like at our wedding, somebody went up to my friend's dad, who's Asian, and he's 6 feet tall. And like my dad is 5'7" with glasses and looks nothing like him, and congratulated my friend's dad on his daughter's wedding. And it's like stuff like that I think pisses me off, because it's like it's ignorance, but it's almost like it's like willful ignorance. Like you should know better. Like we're in a different, but you forget that there is life outside of the coast. Like we are in our own bubble, no matter how, cosmopolitan and like, diverse we think we are. It is a bubble to live in this tri-state area.
100%.
And there's so many different parts of the country that do not think like us. And there should be space for that too. So, so you were Latino. Wait, did you ever correct that guy?
I actually never did. I never like wrote. I was just like, oh, that's so funny. But I was like, wait, my agents would always submit me for Latina roles. They're like, you could pass.
You could. I mean, I guess, yeah.
I was like, and I was like, that's
and
the
also
business.
Zias
I guess
is not like obviously
like Greek.
Right? Is it Greek?
It is Greek. Yeah,
it is. Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny. I haven't taken my husband's last name. I still go by
your maiden name.
My maiden name.
I haven't either. Yeah.
But people will always be like, Diaz? And I'm like, no. And Steve's always like, see, my name's way easier. No one like mistakes that. I'm like,
Although Zias is so easy. It's like, at some point people are just being lazy. That's the thing.
Right. I'm like, no.
it's not even hard. It's not hard.
I'm like, Z as in zebra, I as in ice cream. Like, do you ever have to phonetically spell things?
Yes, all the time. Well, not Anna. Most people get that. But, it's like people are just lazy when it comes to names. And like, I just feel like it's so absurd when people spell or they'll like spell Anna A-N-A when they're like reaching out in a pitch email or something. I was at a brand event the other day and like speaking on a panel, and they're like, oh, what's like the one red flag that you can tell brands that you get in your inbound? And I'm like, when a brand wants to work with me, but they go Dear Anna and spell it D-A-N-A. I'm like, what did you do? Or they call me, some people think my name is May, because my handles may be both. So they think my first name is May, I guess, and my last name's Be Both.
What?
I literally have so many people calling me like, hey, May, thank you so much. I'm like, oh my God,
that is funny.
I'm like, I have my name written out up top.
Sometimes you gotta spell it out for people, I guess.
It's rough. Okay, so your husband is in construction. And you are an influencer. And we talked about a little about this when I first met you, but you're both in two lines of work that are extremely unpredictable. Nobody has a 9 to 5. How do you manage that? How do you manage the uncertainty? Like, do you think about that, or do you? I mean, obviously you're crushing it. So but there's still like, to me, I have so much uncertainty in my career, but my husband has a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That being said, he's always like, if you want to make it in any career, there's no such thing as a sure thing,
You know what? I've watched my dad, who worked in finance, who had a very structured career, and like he's lost his job at certain points.
Right.
So I do feel like no matter what, like there's never any certainty. And sometimes, like, I do get a little worried about it. Like, we have 2 kids. Like, we bought a house. Like, there's, like, bills to pay. There's,
what do you guys do for health insurance? I'm so...
Oh, my gosh. Don't fucking get me started on that shit. Like,
I know.
We pay, like, an insane amount, and we still have awful health insurance.
Yeah.
It's the worst. But other than that, I love having flexible schedules. It can feel chaotic at times, but I don't think I would be able to be as successful in my career if I didn't have a partner who is willing to be as flexible either.
Right.
And I feel like sometimes I'm thriving, sometimes he's thriving, and it's just like we're always just...
You're a team.
We're a team.
Well, it's very symbolic that you were like, I'm moving to LA, and he picked up and went with you because he's just down for whatever happens.
Also, honestly, like, I know our jobs are unpredictable, but I believe in myself, and I feel like if all of this were to go out the window tomorrow and I need to make money, I'd find a way to make money. And I also know that my husband would do the same. Right. So I just feel like I have trust in me. I have trust and confidence in him.
You've done it before.
Yeah.
You picked up and you moved to LA and you're like, I don't have a job out here lined up. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I will figure it out.
Yeah.
And you have been. And
him too. And I also am like not afraid to be like, obviously, like, I can get insecure. Like, I want to be the best at things, but I also don't have an ego where if I need to be like, hey, like, I lost my job. Like, do you know anyone who's looking? Like, I just feel like a lot of times people are scared to put themselves out there like that. And sometimes you have to humble yourself and be like, no, like I need help. Like, do you know anyone?
Right.
And I'm not afraid to do that.
You learn the most when you humble yourself because if you think you know it all, you're never going to be like open to receiving from other people, which is how have you managed to, so you did this for 8 years before making a dime off of it. But like, I guess, because I have done this for a very short period of time in comparison to you, how have you managed to stay consistent and like keep going and continue doing this? And you're still building, especially when you came up in an era that was very different. Like, what do you do on days when you're just like burnt out? And because we all get it, creator burnout, like how do you refill your cup?
I mean, honestly, right now, I'm just like, give myself grace. And I'm like, you know what? Something doesn't need to be posted every single day.
No. Oh my gosh.
It really doesn't. Like, and sometimes I like get hard on myself. I'm like, oh, you haven't posted, or you're like, you're not feeling creative. And I'm like, my life is chaotic, and sometimes you can't feel creative in the chaos. So I take myself out of those elements when I need to. But I honestly just feel like it's okay to not feel 100% all the time. Like my career has ebbed and flowed so much. And for me, when I'm like lacking that creativity, I kind of just immerse myself in something else. And I feel like that helps remind me and refuel me.
That you have a life outside of your online persona.
And also, like, honestly, like my online persona really is my life. So sometimes I'm like, oh, do people like want to see me building this like kids table?
Yes.
And I'm like, actually, like, no. And then sometimes I'll vent that to my friends or whatever. They're like, wait, I kind of like love seeing like the messy mom moments, you know? So I think a lot of times it's really easy to like overthink things. And I'm like, no, people are following me because they've enjoyed following my life over the past decade.
And so when I was doing research on you, I also went into Reddit because I always love to see what the Redditors
Oh my God,
saying.
I never go into Reddit. I'm so nervous. I'm sweating.
Oh, I go into Reddit because I'm like, I want to see what they say about themselves, and I also want to see what people are saying about them because
Wait, what they say about themselves?
No, what people, like what you say about yourself. When I interview somebody, I want to know what the, guest is saying about themselves when presenting, and I also want to see what people are saying about them on Reddit, if they are on Reddit. And people have generally very, very complimentary stuff. You showed up and somebody was like on a feed where it was like, oh, which influencers do you always buy from and which ones do you never buy from? Which ones do you know are just pushing product? And obviously people just chimed in. And then one person said, oh, anything Kristina Zias like tells me to buy, I buy.
That's
and it's
so
great.
nice.
And I think that's great because like that is your brand. Like you share your life and they're genuine moments and they're messy. And that's what I love seeing from you because it's like a reminder. I'm like, okay, so she's doing this with 2 kids and she's figuring it out and we're going to all be fine. She can do this. I want to ask you about the fig tree story because I thought it was so interesting because you had been grappling for like 3 years, you said, about whether to buy a house in LA or whether to settle down in Jersey. And I'm very spiritual. I don't consider myself religious. Were you raised with any sort of religion? I mean,
I'm Greek Orthodox. But I wouldn't say, I honestly feel like I'm like really bad Greek Orthodox person. Like I don't know that much about my religion. Like in the Greek household or in the Greek community, for me, it's been so much more about the traditions, the Greek traditions versus like necessarily like the religious aspect of it. That's at least what I take away from
it's a
my
culture,
yeah,
rather than a religion.
For me at least.
Okay.
But like I baptized my kids in the Greek church. Like I married in the Greek church.
Okay. So I know this fig tree story, but can you tell the story? Because I think it's so cool.
Yes. Okay. So my husband and I have been debating whether or not to stay in LA or to move to New Jersey for 3+ years. We bought a house in Los Angeles in 2020. Literally bought it, and 2 days later, the pandemic happened. And we ended up flipping that house. It was a business opportunity for us. And since then, we were like, what do we do? What do we do? And I think for us, we just felt so confused, right? Like we built our lives in LA. His family moved in LA, so we felt a lot of ties to there. And then my family's on the East Coast. I feel like we needed to change, blah, blah, blah. So we were going for, not kidding you, 3 years, seeing homes on both coasts.
Wild.
And we finally found this house in New Jersey, and it was in our dream neighborhood. It was on the water. That was like something that my husband just was really manifesting, a house on the water. And I was like, that's crazy, like to buy a house on the water. Like that's just, first of all, hard to find. There's not that many of them. Anyways, we found this house and we're like, okay, it seems like it checks all of our boxes. My parents went and saw it for us. They're like, house is a little bit older, but you're going to love this neighborhood. We're like, okay. We put an offer in on it. They accepted it. So we go to do inspections on the house. We really like it. We're like, okay, I guess we're moving forward with it. Still, like, honestly, we were not all in. Even though we put a deposit in, we're like, we can always get it back if we want to. We just weren't sure. We ended up going back to the house again, flying back and forth, by the way, with 2 kids from LA to New Jersey. And at this point, we negotiated again with the house. We had it. We were going in there to do last-minute measurements. And honestly, we were doing measurements, so that's what they told us. But what really happened was it recently rained a lot. And we were going in there to make sure nothing was wrong with the house because we were just worried about it. Mm-hmm. So it was like a combo of both. We're like, if we need to get out of it, we could still find a way.
Right.
And the owners of the house happened to be there because they were moving things out. This was a couple weeks before we closed on the house, which if you buy a house, it's like a very long process. So
it is, yeah.
It wasn't until even a couple weeks before this that we were still unsure. And we're talking to the owners, and all of a sudden my husband and I are upstairs, and this guy comes up to my husband and he's like, He's like, you're buying this house? He's like, yeah. He's like, you're the husband? He's like, yeah. He's like, come down. I want to show you something. It was the owner's son. And we're like, what the heck? We're like, Steve and I immediately, worst case thoughts. We're like, something's wrong with this house that he's going to show us. And he randomly takes Steve outside to the backyard. And he's like, you see this tree? This is a fig tree. It's a white fig tree. He's like, I planted this tree during COVID, and it is my pride and joy. He's like, whatever you do to this house, please do not cut down this tree. And Steve got chills throughout his entire body. I have chills saying this too, because his dad, who passed away, planted a white fig tree in the house that they grew up in. And it was his dad's pride and joy. He loved this tree so much. Every winter would wrap it up. Every summer would unwrap it, do everything to take care of it, protect it from the squirrels and the deer. And when his mom sold the house, they cut down the tree, and his whole family was devastated. So the fact that like this randomly, there's like one fruit tree in the house.
And it's like in a random spot. It's like next to a fence or something.
It's not even by any of the other landscaping or anything. And the fact that he like singled out Steve.
I know.
And told him this. And 2 years before this, we had another experience with Steve's dad. I told you that too, right?
Can you tell it on?
2 years ago, Steve and I went to Coachella. And we came back from Coachella, and we were living in an apartment building, and the light above our parking spot was flickering. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. You know when you're in a garage and there's like a flickering light? It's like a little creepy.
You've watched way too many horror movies.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah.
Didn't think anything of it.
This is the part where somebody dies.
Exactly. Didn't think anything of it. 2 days later, I'm going to the building, and this woman walks out, our building manager, Tiffany, and she was like, have you seen that light flickering above Steve's motorcycle? I was like, yeah, why? Because we had tandem spots. So his motorcycle was in the front, our car was in the back. It was the light
very
right above
LA.
His motorcycle. Right, exactly. And I was like, yeah, are they going to come fix it? It's kind of creepy. She's like, I'm pretty sure that's Steve's dad trying to get in touch with him. We're like, what? I was like,
who is this woman?
Our building manager.
Oh my.
I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, it could be his grandfather, but I'm pretty sure it's his dad.
Did you know this woman before? Or
just in passing a couple times. Like she changed the locks on our door and in the building. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? I was like, that is the craziest thing because Steve's dad actually passed. And she was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, like I don't really tell anyone this, but I'm a medium. I used to be a medium for 10 plus years and I stopped doing it because it was too emotionally draining for me. But I still get visits from people, and that's Steve's dad trying to get in touch with him.
And you never told her Steve's dad had passed away?
Never. And but that weekend, my mother-in-law was watching our son and staying at our place. I was like, Steve's mom talks to everyone. I bet you she had a conversation with her. Text Steve's mom. I was like, did you talk to her building manager? She's like, no, I haven't spoken to a single person. I called up Steve. I was like, did you ever tell Tiffany that your dad died? He's like, no, why? And I told him the story. He's like, what the heck? So a couple days go by and she's like, yeah, it's Steve's dad. Like he wants to talk to Steve. She's like, he keeps coming back messaging me. So they set up a time to do a reading. Steve would never in his life look into something like this ever. Like he's like the last person.
I've seen him a lot on your socials. Yeah. Not that I know him, but I'm like, he does not seem like he would be into mediums or anything.
At all. But like when someone's telling you your dad's trying to get in touch with you and it's like at your front door, you're like, okay, whatever. So he's like, okay, we'll do it. He's like, maybe next weekend. She's like, okay, I'm going away this weekend. We can do it next weekend. We ended up going to New York or to New Jersey for 3 weeks. We come back. She's like, Steve, where have you been? She's like, your dad will not leave me alone. He's at the kitchen table when I'm eating breakfast. He's in the bathroom. He's following me around. He wants to talk to you. He's like, what? So they ended up doing a reading. And she was like, before we do this reading, I want you to write down a list of questions. Not for me to ask, just so you have things to make sure you get answers for all of these. He's like, Kristina, she answered every single question without knowing him. She knew everything about his dad. She knew how he passed, which is not something they share. That she knew like all these intimate details, even like a little thing like one of his questions was like, has dad seen Alexis? And she was like, your dad's up there with a white dog. And Alexis was their white dog who they had growing up.
And she had no context.
No context whatsoever.
Because Alexis could be a person.
Nothing.
That's also like
and
a
also she
human
never
name.
saw the questions. It was just in his notes app. It was just
I need this woman's number.
I know. It was really, really wild. So anyways, it was so crazy that they had that whole experience. And then 2 years later, 2 years later, we're buying this house. And then someone else, like there was another sign of Steve's dad. So pretty much once that happened, we're like, this is it. Like this is the house for us. Like there felt like there was not a clear sign in the world. I will say she did mess up on something though.
What?
During this reading, she also said, by the way, you're white, you're going to have another baby and it's a girl and you're going to be living in New Jersey. And we're like, what? And at that point, I found out I was pregnant 2 days before. I hadn't told anyone besides Steve. And we didn't know the gender or the sex of the baby at all.
Right.
So that was the thing. I'm like, oh, I had another baby, but it was a boy.
Yeah.
And I remember she came up to me. She's like, have you found out the sex of the baby yet? I was like, yeah, it's a boy. You were wrong. And I was kind of mad at her, honestly, because I'm like, I'm fine with the medium stuff, but I didn't want I don't like psychic readings, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I don't want to know the future.
I don't want to know the future.
Yeah.
That does not make me comfortable.
Agreed.
I don't like that at all. And honestly, like it kind of got into my head about whether I want a boy or a girl because now all of a sudden I thought I was having a girl because she said that and I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So anyways, and she was like, no, I wasn't wrong. She's like, it's going to be your third. And I was
Oh
like,
my
okay.
God.
I was like, that's convenient. Anyways, that was our experience with
But you
that.
are thinking you might have a third. So.
Sometimes. So yeah, who knows?
All right, we'll see.
We'll see if she's right. To be determined.
If she's wrong again, then you have grounds for. But that is oddly and that's so creepy. That like in a good way that she knew so much about Steve's dad.
She knew so much about Steve's dad. It was a really cathartic experience for him. I was really happy that he did it. Again, like he never would have sought something out like that.
Right.
And I feel like it brought him a lot of closure and it was like a beautiful moment. And then full circle to hear the fig tree, I was like, oh my gosh, your dad's like really out here looking out for us. Like he is telling us this is the house we should get.
That's amazing. Do you take really good care of that tree?
I don't. Steve takes such good care of it. It is actually like the cutest thing I've ever seen. I didn't even realize he was doing all this work for it. He like put this whole thing around the bottom of the tree so the deer don't get it. I had no idea.
Yeah, the deer netting and everything.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, he's put all these sticks up so all the different branches like stay up firmer so it grows better. I had no idea he was even doing that. But he takes such good care of the tree. It's really sweet.
That's really awesome. That's his dad saying, hey, I'm here with you guys.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's crazy and that's so cool.
Yeah.
So I want to end on this question. I believe that success and rejection are two sides of the same coin, and that the people who find success are the ones who've been able to accept rejection and use it as fuel rather than to stop them. So what has been a rejection, whether it's a relationship or business rejection, in your life that has propelled you forward?
I would say the first thing that comes to mind is when I graduated from college, like I said, I was really unsure of what I wanted to do. I was taking acting classes, hosting classes, like answering every single backstage ad, just trying to
I remember backstage.
just trying to figure everything out. And finally I was like, okay, I need to get a real job. And a couple of my friends started working at this advertising agency. And I was like, I've been in sales because I was working at Nordstrom. And I guess it was just Nordstrom, but like sales are sales, right?
Yeah.
And I was successful there. I was like, I have all this background. I'm also like comfortable in speaking in front of people. I'd be great at this. And I interviewed for it and I got through to the next round. And then I interviewed again. And I was telling this guy, he was like asking a lot about me, my other passions. And I was telling him, he's like, you're not going to be, he's like, this isn't the right job for you. And I was like, no, like I need this job. I'm making no money right now. Like it was paying $40,000 a year, which at the time was like a game changer for me because everything else full-time was offering me like $25,000. I was like, this is a huge difference. Like, I want this job. He was like, no. He's like, I'm going to be honest with you. He's like, I don't think you'll last here. We'll hire you and you're probably not going to last. And I remember being so rejected because so many of my other friends were getting this job. I'm like, I feel more qualified. Like my friends have just been servers at restaurants. I've had all these other things. Like I am technically on paper, I've had like 5 different internships in PR and advertising and like all these different things.
You're overqualified.
I'm overqualified for this. And this guy was like, no, you don't belong here. He's like, I'm gonna be honest with you, you don't belong in a cubicle. You don't belong here. You're not gonna, he just knew. And anyways, it was such a rejection. I remember going home and being so embarrassed. But I think he was right. Like I wouldn't have been happy there and it probably would have led me down a completely different path. So I feel like that rejection after that is when I decided to move to LA.
That's so cool. And that's why we all know you now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kristina. This was so inspiring. We're going to have to follow you in your triathlon training.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love being around you. You have the best energy and I had so much fun.
Thank you so much.